Welcome, ladies. I hope you all are doing well. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about money. I'm going to review the book Know Yourself, Know Your Money by Rachel Cruze. Rachel Cruze is the daughter of Dave Ramsey. If you are not familiar with who Dave Ramsey is, you can check him out right here on YouTube. He has become famous for helping people to get out of debt with his baby steps program. She does detail the baby steps in this book. So if you get the book, you will get an overview of what those are. So, since we're at the beginning of a new year, I thought it would be a good time to come in and just talk about how we can review our finances. And this book is definitely a good tool to do that. Especially with everything that is going on right now, I just think that it would be wise for all of us to take a look at our finances. And this book is definitely a way to help with that, or a good tool to help with that. Okay, so the book is a pretty quick and easy read. It has two parts broken into 14 chapters, and it's about 250 pages, excuse me. Um, so I'm going to focus on reading a little bit of chapter 9. I'm going to read from chapter 9 because she has a few questions that we should ask ourselves before we spend money. And she describes common mindsets that we all have around spending money and how those mindsets can create unnecessary debt. So, before I do that, I will read to you what the chapters are. So, in part one, it's discovering your personal money mindset. Chapter one, your childhood money classroom. Now, the money classroom is a term that she uses to describe what you learned during childhood around money and how that affects the way that you spend money today. So, chapter two is stressed money classroom. Chapter 3, Calm Money Classroom. And you will be able to find out which classroom you fall into after reading the chapters and answering some of the questions that are in them. And it's really helpful to do that because you will gain an understanding of why you spend the way that you do. So, chapter 4 is Your Unique Money Tendencies. Chapter 5, Your Money Fears Part 1. Chapter 6, Your Money Fears Part 2. Chapter 7, How You Respond to Money Mistakes. Chapter 8, The Best Way to Respond When Money Mistakes Happen. Part 2, Discovering What You Do with Money and Why. Chapter 9, What Motivates You to Spend Money. Chapter 10, What Motivates You to Save Money. Chapter 11, Discovering What's Most Important to You. Chapter 12, What Motivates You to Give Money. Chapter 13, How Committed Are You to Winning with Money? And Chapter 14, Change Your Money and Your Life. Okay, so I'm going to go to Chapter 9, and I think I'm going to start reading. Let's see. She has a few. Yeah, Chapter 9 is what motivates you to spend money. So, what you buy, why you buy what you buy, excuse me. Then it's what it looks like to love someone else's life. She has another book, and I think it's titled Love Your Life, Not Someone Else's. I'm also going to get that book and read through that. But I guess I'll start here in Chapter 9. The header is Fear of Man. My dad says one of the best unintended gifts of the bankruptcy for him was that it removed what he calls his fear of man, or caring too much about what other people think. Once you've hit rock bottom and have nothing left to lose, you stop caring what other people think. I'll give you an example. My dad was always a car guy, and before the bankruptcy, he'd bought a really nice Jaguar. He would tell you today that he bought that Jaguar so other people would be impressed. He wanted them to think he was successful and important. Now, fast forward to today, my dad is still a car guy, but now when he buys a car, with cash of course, he doesn't care if anyone notices or thinks well of him. His fear of man is gone. He buys the car for himself because he enjoys cars and he can afford it. His spending choices are for him now. Fear of man is the unhealthy side of trying to fit in or keep up or look impressive to others. Fear of man makes you say stuff like, I'll buy a luxury car I can't afford so people will think I'm doing well. If that's the stroller she uses, then it's the one I have to have. If I carry that purse, people will think I'm successful. If he's buying a house this year, then so should I. They go to Disney every year. We should too. If I have a ring that big, other people will be impressed. Fear of man is making choices for your life based on what other people think or do. And it's a spending cycle that never ends. The lie is that we can gain approval and acceptance by having nice things, but what's in style and fashionable keeps changing. New cars come out, home decor trends change, and fashions go out of style. There are always new phones, new watches, nicer luggage, more exotic vacations, and sheets with a higher thread count. You can never cross the finish line of approval because the finish line keeps moving. Talk about exhausting. Okay, so then I'm going to skip to the next section. Is that all there is? We're surrounded by people who have things that we don't. Our family, friends, and all those feeds we scroll through on social media. When we see all that stuff, it's really easy to start thinking that we need or deserve those things too. But what we often forget is that most people are living way beyond their means. One of my all-time favorite television shows is Friends, that classic 90s sitcom about six 20-somethings living in New York City. I'm such a fan that I had it on my bucket list to visit the set and sit on the famous orange couch in Central Perk, the fictional coffee shop featured in almost every episode of Friends. If you're a fan of the show, you probably know it wasn't filmed in New York, but on a movie lot in Los Angeles. I travel pretty regularly to LA for work, so when Winston decided to come along with me a few years ago, this was before we had kids, I booked the two of us a tour of the Warner Brothers lot. I could not wait to get my picture on the famous Central Perk couch. And I did, but I got more out of that tour than I bargained for. Okay, so then she goes on to talk about how she got to see the house that that Monica and Ross grew up in, and how it was just a shell, and she learned that some of her favorite scenes had actually been filmed in a different place, and how, again, it wasn't real, and she was just shocked to find that she knew that that the show's not real, of course, but the way that it was done is what was shocking to her. That's what she talks about. And that's just applying to if we were to peel back the curtain on some of the lives of other people. And sometimes if people would peel back the curtain on our own lives, they would find some things that are shocking. So basically, you don't ever want to be living your life making decisions based on what someone else is doing or what someone else has, because it doesn't make any sense. And it can be harmful to your finances. And to that point, when she talks about fear of man, you taking it back to people, she also talks about in this book the dangers of being a parent to adult children and enabling them by giving them money, paying rent for them, doing things for them that they really should be doing for themselves. And even also how you have to be careful about doing that with like younger children too. And, for example, if you have children, you're not in retirement age, you should be focused on your retirement. And if you're in your retirement age, your children should be in a way to take care of themselves. But then on the flip side of that, she also talks about how parents will try to siphon money away from their adult children. So she does go into detail about how to deal with those situations also in this book, which is just really good to know, because I know that both of those situations happen to a lot of people. I've seen it happen to people, and people don't always know how to deal with that, because if you love your family, if you love your children, you want to help them, but you definitely don't want to be enabling them, because then they don't change, they don't learn any lessons, and then you become hurt by it because you're giving what you really don't have to give, or you're charging credit cards and things like that you really shouldn't be. So that's just something to keep in mind, and she does talk about that in this book as well. Okay, so then the next section is facades. Hollywood isn't the only place you'll find fake fronts. They're all around us. The people we work with, our neighbors, those we go to church with, even us. Everyone looks great on the outside, like they have it all together, but it's often only a fake front paid for with debt. The facade is supposed to give an impression of success, of having arrived, but open the door to their lives, and there's only a staircase inside. We've been comparing our own lives to something that isn't even real. And that's where the danger comes in. American households with credit card debt carry an average balance of just over $14,500. They're literally living paycheck to paycheck in order to finance a lifestyle they can't afford. That big SUV in the driveway and their designer jeans may send the signal that they have it all together, but statistics tell us they don't. So, what ends up happening when you compare your life to your neighbors? You're often comparing your life to broke people. And aspiring to be like people who are broke is a terrible plan. I just thought of something, ladies. If you are single and you're dating and you want to be married, something to pay attention to definitely is the man's finances. And you don't even have to ask him questions. Because a lot of men, of course, don't take nicely to that. They'll think that you're trying to use them for money. But just observe the things that he does. Is he just always spending? Is he always charging everything on the credit card? Because if he is, that's not a good sign. And I do know that there are people who use credit cards and they pay them off every month. But I think that's kind of rare that people do that. And again, just pay attention to the way that the man spends money. And I don't think that a lot of women do that because a lot of times as women, we'll be focused on the fact that the man is spending on us and that'll make us feel happy and great. But don't just focus on that. Focus on how he's spending on you. Because if he's just charging up a bunch of credit card debt, that shows that he's financially irresponsible. He's probably in debt. He may be looking to be in a relationship because he needs something from you, and that something is your money. So just keep that in mind because that's something that I always pay attention to when I date. I pay attention to what men say about money, and I pay attention to what I see them do with money. I never ask them any questions because I don't have to. Because usually, if you just let a man talk, you'll find out everything that he's all about. And that's not only just with money. So I just want to throw that out there. It's something very important to pay attention to. If you're someone who's serious about your money, you're serious about not being in debt or getting out of debt, saving for your retirement, whatever your financial goals are, you want to make sure that you get with somebody who has those same financial goals. You want to be with someone, you have to be on the same page. They say that the number one reason for divorce is money. And I truly do believe that because I have been married and I'm now divorced. And it was because of money, because I was married to someone who was very financially irresponsible. So that's just something to keep in mind, ladies. Even if a man makes a lot of money or he makes good money, as my ex-husband did, if he's spending all of it on nothing and he's irresponsible with credit cards, it does not matter. A man who makes $40K a year and has no debt and he's financially responsible is sometimes better than a man who makes $100K a year, who's full of debt, child support payments, and all kinds of other things that are just taking that money right away. So just keep that in mind, ladies, if you're serious about your money. So then the next section here is how to guard against spending for others. If you find yourself on this side of the spending scale more often than not, I want to pass along some questions I've learned to ask myself before I buy something. These questions will help you spend money more thoughtfully and save more money too. Question 1. If no one ever sees this purchase, do I still want it? If I don't post about it on social media, do I still want it? If it gets ruined, how will that affect me? Do I believe I will be fulfilled after making this purchase? And question 5, do I believe this thing is going to make me happy? Asking these questions will give you a quick gut check about your motive for wanting to make that purchase. And let me tell you, these questions have convinced me more than once to not buy something I thought I had to have. Okay, ladies, so I'm going to stop reading there. And this was chapter 9 that I was reading from. The next section is The Power of Contentment. What It Looks Like to Love Your Life is the section after that. And then she has a section, Your Secret Spending Weapon. One thing that I also did like that she mentioned in this book under the heading The Power of Contentment is she talked about gratitude and how keeping a gratitude journal or list is very helpful in you becoming content with what you have. This is something that I actually do. I do this every morning. I have a small book that I use, and I'll write down 3 things every morning before I get started for the day that I'm grateful for. Sometimes it can just be a good night's sleep. It can be small things. It doesn't have to be anything big. You can just be grateful that you have running water in your home, grateful that you have heat, grateful for beauty. I mean, it can be anything that you can think of, but I find that is a very helpful, and it's a good way to start off your day in gratitude and not in negativity. I try to guard against that in my mornings, of making sure that the first thing I hear, say, and listen to is something positive. So, okay, ladies, I hope that you enjoyed my review and my reading of this book, Know Yourself, Know Your Money, Discover Why You Handle Money the Way You Do and What to Do About It by Rachel Cruze. I really did enjoy this book, and I hope that you'll enjoy the book too. And I hope that you enjoyed my reading. Thank you for listening.